Welcome to this introductory video for your depth of field and motion photography assignment. This assignment will be quick and it's a little complicated, which is why I'm doing this video. So we're going to be exploring depth of field and motion a little bit more in depth. So this is kind of a two-part assignment where we work to use these two functions creatively within the software. So it's going to be kind of split into half. The first part we're emphasizing depth of field, so we're emphasizing use of our aperture. And then the second part we're emphasizing motion, which will be utilizing our shutter speed. So there will be artist lectures which you have to watch to really get a grasp of what I'm looking for this assignment. You have to watch the videos. I can get a count on how many of you guys actually watch the videos, and I make them for you guys, so please watch the videos. So the depth of field, you'll take a series of photographs where the depth of field, how much of the scene is in focus, adds to the photograph. Practice photographing food with a shallow depth of field, or a row of bicycles with a deep depth of field. Think about your composition, focus, and the space of the photograph and the subject's role. You can shoot objects, landscapes, people, anything. Work with your most closed and most open aperture. In this assignment, the extremes of your lenses will give the best results. So, shooting something around f5.6 isn't going to be as strong as shooting something that's f2.8 or f11. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about this in the depth of field lecture video on how to garner their best results. And then motion. So we're going to think about motion, speed, action. So the shutter speed, emphasized by motion blur, not camera shake, or pausing a moment in time. You're going to take a series of photographs dealing with motion. These would be cars driving, people running, water splashing. Anything that emphasizes motion. You really need to have a scene that has a lot of motion in it. So someone walking down the street and pausing them using a freezing motion is not going to be a strong one, because could be they were just standing there. I want to be able to see the photograph and tell that there was motion happening. Timing in relation to your shutter speed may be more difficult to master than the aperture. This isn't going to be as intuitive. So I would actually do just a few test runs of having a simple motion, either walking in front of the camera and doing step by step by step by step by step with your shutter speed to kind of get an idea of how fast or how slow you need to work within that scene. Think about what's happening in the frame, where the action is, how to compose where the movement is. You could be creating a story or narrative. Try to anticipate movement the best you can, which can be difficult. This isn't going to be a quick, I can shoot for 10 minutes. This is going to be something we need to think about where the movement is happening. You're going to choose 10 images for the assignment. You're going to choose 4 from depth of field, 2 must be emphasizing shallow depth of field, and 2 must be emphasizing deep depth of field. 4 from your motion images, 2 must be emphasizing motion blur, not camera shake, and 2 must be emphasizing freezing action. The last 2 could be open between depth of field or motion, whether or not you're freezing or adding motion blur or depth of field. It could be a mix-up, whatever ones you really like. The images should be easily identifiable whether or not they're deep or shallow depth of field, motion blur, freezing action. If I cannot tell what you are attempting to do, it's going to be 0. It should be very clear for anyone to look at the photograph and kind of get an idea of whether or not you're freezing motion, having motion blur, having a shallow depth of field, or a deep depth of field. Images should be processed through Camera Raw in Photoshop to create visually dynamic images. You can use Lightroom. I just want JPEGs. I do not want your Camera Raw files, your PSDs. You should be saving your PSDs for your own emphasis. No flash on camera or external or strobes will be allowed, and you have to use manual exposure. This is the point of the class, is using manual exposure, which is why we spent the first 2 weeks emphasizing the exposure triangle. And then that third week we talked about white balance. Photographs, minimum 8 by 10 inches. They can be larger, just no smaller than 8 by 10 inches. 300 ppi or dpi. No watermarks on your images. And then the file naming is going to be a little different. So, your depth of field images will be your name underscore PA4 for PhotoAssignment 4 underscore DOF for depth of field underscore hashtag 01, 02, 03. This is a 2-digit, no hashtags are in the file names, .jpg. The extension should be there just once. We talked about renaming files within the first week and proper image systems within the first week, so this should be old hat by now. Motion images will have a separate file name. Your name underscore PA4 underscore motion underscore hashtag .jpg 01, 02. So that should be for your images. Now your 2 extra, just make sure you're making the definition that they're depth of field or motion. You'll put them on a Google Drive folder on your name - photography assignment 4 depth of field motion DOF shared on Canvas correctly. Again, I really want to emphasize that I need to be able to tell whether or not you're using shallow depth of field or deep depth of field fairly easy. That should be fairly clear. If it's something that's kind of in the middle, do not use that image. Use your images that directly correspond with this assignment. The rubric is pretty simple. We are building upon every skill, every lecture, and every demo that we're working on this class. So your technical skills, your creative skills. So we talked about how to choose your best picture. We talked about color. We talked about white balance. We talked about composition. We talked about snapshots versus photography. Every lecture, every reading is something that we're building upon for each assignment. So it's always good, if you're a little confused, is to kind of look back to see what we're going for, what we have gone over in this class. Everything we're working on, we're building upon. And you need to be demonstrating your skills from previous demos and lectures. No shots should be straight out of camera. Everything should be processed based on the skills. We know how to do white balance correction. We know how to do basic editing within Camera Raw and Lightroom. We also learned how to do some work with the adjustment layers. So we're working on a lot of stuff. We talked about a lot so far, and I'm excited to see you process these through. You're going to watch the depth of field lecture that I give. You'll also watch the motion lecture. There's some additional videos and readings for you guys to get before you start shooting. I also want to note that this isn't a long time to work on this assignment. So as soon as it's assigned, you need to be thinking about your ideas and bringing your camera with you. And I'll see you for our next video lectures.